My name is Tyler Thornton, and today I'm excited to share with you my research on the Pechanga Band of Indians in the Mid-America All-Indian Museum. This presentation brings together two distinct yet deeply interconnected areas of study: a community profile of the Pechanga Band and an institutional profile of the Mid-America All-Indian Museum in Wichita, Kansas. While these two entities operate in very different contexts, one as a sovereign tribal community, the other as a public-facing museum, they both center cultural survival, language revitalization, and the power of storytelling. My hope today is that by the end of this presentation, you'll see the threads of continuity between tribal self-determination and institutional stewardship of Indigenous history. In this presentation, I will begin by exploring the Pechanga Band of Indians through the lens of cultural memory, land, governance, and preservation efforts. I'll look at how the community has adapted through waves of colonialism, fought to reclaim its name and land, and continues to assert sovereignty in a 21st century context. In the second half of the presentation, I will turn our attention to the Mid-America All-Indian Museum. I'll talk about the museum's exhibitions, its significance to the Southern Plains tribes, and the limitations and opportunities it faces in honoring Native voices. Ultimately, both profiles demonstrate how place-based knowledge, collective memory, and identity remain vital to Indigenous futures. Let's begin with the Pechanga Band of Indians, whose reservation is located in Temecula, California. They are part of the larger Payo-Camichun Nation, which you'll have to forgive my pronunciation, but this reinforces that my language barrier and attachment to the language pronunciation of the nation is something that I, as an LIS student, still need to work on. And if I am able to continue working on this knowledge, I will once again have a better understanding of the language of this nation, which also translates to people of the West. This name, unlike the Spanish-imposed term Luiseño, comes from their own oral traditions and worldview. In early 2024, the Tribal Council officially voted to drop the Spanish name Luiseño from their government designation, a move that represents an important decolonial act of self-definition and self-determination. This kind of linguistic sovereignty matters. The name Luiseño ties the tribe to the mission San Luis Rey, a site of profound trauma for the tribe. By reclaiming Payo-Camichun, they are not only restoring identity, but also severing a colonial tether. Long before civilization, the Pechanga people had a vibrant and sophisticated society rooted in respect for the land and communal interdependence. They thrived through sustainable hunting, foraging, and agriculture in the Temecula Valley for more than 10,000 years. Tools like bedrock mortars, stone implements, and woven baskets reveal an ecosystem-based knowledge system. Their oral traditions, especially the story of Exva Temiku, serve as cosmological anchors that shape everything from social order to dietary customs. This sacred site is considered the birthplace of the first children and continues to hold immense spiritual significance for the tribe. These traditions are not relics. They are part of a living culture that guides decision-making and environmental stewardship to this day. European contact began in the late 1700s with the Spanish mission system, which forcibly conscripted indigenous people into labor and religious conversion. When the missions were secularized during the Mexican period, indigenous people saw further land dispossession through land grants. American expansion added another layer of violence and displacement. By the 1880s, the Pechanga people had been pushed onto a small reservation. Only a fraction of their traditional territory remained. Yet through all of this, they resisted and persisted. Families preserved cultural practices in private. Stories were passed down in hushed tones. Even without federal recognition for many years, the Pechanga people held fast to their identity and autonomy. Today, the Pechanga Band of Indians operates under a modern tribal council government led by elected officials, including a chairman, vice chairman, and council members. Chairman Mark McEnroe has become a nationally recognized advocate for indigenous rights and tribal sovereignty. The Pechanga government oversees a broad range of programs, from education and housing to law enforcement and land use. They've passed ordinances, managed their own leasing systems, and engage actively in intergovernmental affairs. Sovereignty isn't abstract for Pechanga. It's practiced daily in the exercise of legal, economic, and cultural control. Cultural preservation is central to the tribe's mission. Through the Pechanga Cultural Resources Department, they protect sacred sites like Wiasau, or the Great Oak Tree, which is believed to be over 1,000 years old. This tree is not just a natural wonder, it is a living ancestor, a symbol of endurance and rootedness. The Cultural Center also houses exhibitions, runs language programs, and provides workshops in traditional arts. These efforts ensure that cultural knowledge is transmitted across generations. It's not just about keeping the past alive, it's about empowering future leaders to carry the culture forward. The tribe's economic transformation has also played a key role in these efforts. The Pechanga Resort Casino, one of the largest in California, funds many of the tribe's programs in health, education, and cultural affairs. But their economy is diversified. Through the Pechanga Development Corporation, they manage hotels, golf courses, and renewable energy ventures. In 2017, they launched a 1 megawatt solar PV project with support from the U.S. Department of Energy. This project not only reduced carbon emissions, but also reflected traditional ecological values of stewardship. Their economic model is one of self-determination, using revenue to invest back into the people and the land. Language is another core aspect of cultural sovereignty. The Pechanga Language Revitalization Program uses classes, digital tools, and community events to teach the language, which is still endangered. These efforts align with what Robin Kimmerer calls language as a seed. Language carries worldview. When it disappears, so does an entire way of relating the earth and others. The tribe also participates in NAGPRA-related repatriation efforts, working with museums to bring ancestral remains and sacred objects home to the tribe. This is not just legal compliance, it is spiritual justice. I'd like now to turn to the second part of this presentation and focus on a cultural institution, the Mid-America All-Indian Museum. While this is not run by a tribal government, the Mid-America All-Indian Museum serves as a public-facing center of education, memory, and cultural celebration for Native peoples of the Southern Plains. What makes this museum especially significant is its location and founding purpose: to make Native histories visible in the very region where so many were displaced. The Mid-America All-Indian Museum was established in Wichita, Kansas, to showcase Native American art, history, and cultural contributions. It's home to the iconic Keeper of the Plains statue by Black Bear Bosson, a Comanche Kiowa artist whose vision helped shape the museum's mission. The statue, which stands at the confluence of the Arkansas and Little Arkansas rivers, represents a sacred place of gathering. The museum itself houses Boson's original works, artifacts from local tribes, and rotating exhibits that highlight both historical and contemporary indigenous voices. It is a space for education and cultural exchange, and a reminder that Native presence is ongoing. The Mid-America All Indian Museum's mission centers on honoring Native identity through public programming, exhibitions, and partnerships. The museum offers workshops in beadwork, storytelling events, and hands-on activities for the youth. Its collections span regalia, pottery, archival photographs, and more. Though modest in size, the museum makes a concerted effort to amplify Native voices, often collaborating with tribal artists and educators to ensure authentic representation. This aligns with best practices in museum work, where Indigenous communities are not just subjects of display, but active partners in curation and interpretation. One of the Mid-America All Indian Museum's greatest strengths is its accessibility. It's a community-based institution that welcomes diverse audiences and prioritizes inclusion. Its outreach to schools and civic organizations helps build cross-cultural understanding. Events like Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations, educational field trips, and artist-led tours foster dialogue and respect. Exhibits like We Are Still Here challenge stereotypes and emphasize contemporary Native experiences. The Mid-America All Indian Museum functions as a bridge between the public and Native histories, between the past and the present. However, like many cultural institutions, the Mid-America All Indian Museum faces structural challenges. Limited staffing and funding constrain the scope of its programs and preservation efforts. The museum's collection would benefit from increased digitization and cataloging, which could enhance research and access. Furthermore, while it partners with tribal voices, deeper collaborations with sovereign nations can make its practice more robust and reciprocal. These challenges aren't unique to the Mid-America All Indian Museum. They reflect broader tensions in public history work, especially when dealing with communities historically marginalized or misrepresented. Despite their differences in structural and scope, both the Pechanga Band of Indians and the Mid-America All Indian Museum demonstrate shared commitments to cultural continuity, education, and resilience. Each uses its respective platform, sovereign government, and museum to shape how Indigenous stories are told and remembered. Both value the land, language, and ancestors. And both remind us that preservation is not static. It is a living process that requires adaptability, care, and community engagement. Working on this project gave me a deeper appreciation for the complexity of Indigenous preservation work, how it's layered, contextual, and deeply relational. As someone entering the field of library and information science, I see parallels in our responsibilities to safeguard knowledge, honor provenance, and amplify underrepresented voices. Whether in a museum archive or a tribal cultural center, our work must be grounded in respect, listening, and partnership. I hope this presentation has sparked some reflection on your part as well. Thank you for being here and